So are you ready?
We are ready.
Okay, I'm sorry, we're running a little late trying to get the technology. So we are now ready to start the board meeting. I'm calling the meeting to order. This is our first meeting being conducted with remote participation due to the state of emergency caused by the coronavirus 19 pandemic. So please be patient with our technology. I will do a roll call for all votes as not everyone is in the room. If you want to speak, please, on your screen, if you're on Zoom, if you're a board member, you can raise your hand if you'd like to participate in the discussion. Or at public participation time, the public can raise their hand, and I will call on you to participate. And we'll try to do this as easily as we can, but please be patient tonight. We're trying to work out all the details of how we can do this. So will the clerk please call the roll?
Goss? Yes. Harper? Hey, everybody. Harper?
Stan, can you hear us?
Yeah, there's Dan. We have terrible feedback. Say that, Stan.
Is this the 60s?
Terrible feedback. We can't understand what's being said. It's echoing.
I'm here, Harper's here.
Well, it turns out we're having a slight problem because we have 4 people in a room. We need to move a couple people out. So we'll try to spread you out a little more in the different rooms. Be right back. Do you want to go ahead and do the roll call for the people in this room?
Where's
You know who's here? Matt, why don't you do the roll call for the people in this room?
All right, Rector? Here. Thorsland?
Here.
Cowart? Dillard Meyer? Fears?
Here.
Rosales?
Here.
That's everyone in the room? Patterson?
Patterson, are you here in the meeting? Stephanie, you can call just.
Ingram?
can see some of your pictures. You have video, so we're going to just count, we're going to go ahead and count you present. You can say it. We won't necessarily be able to hear it, but we can see your picture on the screen, so we know you're attending. So Matt, do you want to finish with the people you can see up on the screen?
Taylor,
There's Lee Taylor, Stan Harper, Jim McGuire, and Stephanie Furtado. Aaron Esri is on. Brad Clemens is on. Chris Storr. Mike Ingram. We got him. Jody Eisenman. Yeah, we did. And Charles is in the other room.
so
And
we're,
Charles Young.
so we're missing Tinsley, Wolken, and Clifford.
Clifford is in the other room. So, Wolken is not here. She's out of town. And I'm not sure about James Tinsley. James, is James Tinsley on? Okay, James is not on the list. Stephanie, can you mute your phone? Your name is still up there. Oh, okay. Why is her name still up there? Okay, we do have a quorum. You see Steve Summers? Okay. All right, we're going to do the prayer. We ask for calm, assurance, and strength. May we all remember that in the midst of any crisis, your grace reaches us, your hope enlightens us, and your love surrounds us all. And in Spanish, en medio de la crisis, tu gracias no alcanzar, tu esperanza nos ilumina, y tu amor nos rioda. Will the people in the room rise for the pledge? Okay, thank you. Would the clerk read the notice of the meeting, please?
Notice is hereby given that a regular meeting of the County Board, Champaign County, Illinois, will convene on March 19, 2020, 6:30 p.m. in the Lyle Shields Meeting Room, Brookings Administrative Center, 1776 East Washington Street, Urbana, Illinois, in said county for the purposes of allowing and ordering payments of claims against the county, receiving and acting upon reports of committees, and such other matters as may be brought before said meeting, which said meeting shall continue in session from day to day until the completion of said business.
Thank you. Sorry, we're still having a few technical difficulties. All right, next will be approval of the agenda. I would like to say that item 9A, the drug court presentation, is not going to be happening tonight. It will be rescheduled for a later date. And we will not be able to have the closed session tonight, so item D1 is being pulled from the agenda from that part. Otherwise, is there any other change, or is the agenda, can I get a motion to approve the agenda? Okay, Mr. Rosales, Mr. Goss. Any discussion? Hearing none, approval of the agenda, please. We're going to have to do a roll call for every item because some people aren't in the room. So let's do the roll call. We're going to unmute and then.
We're gonna unmute people one at a time. So
Okay, you tell him who and.
Goss.
Yes.
It
He's
would
just
be
going
so
down the
much
list.
easier to just go down the
He's
list.
just going down the list.
Harper?
After he, we're going to read the name, the clerk is going to read the name of the person for roll call, and then you have to wait a second while we unmute your mic at the control. Stan, you can say yes.
Yeah, I'm here.
We can hear you. You voted, are you voting yes on the agenda?
Yes.
Okay.
Ingram.
Okay.
Yeah,
Mike,
sure, why not?
thank you.
McGuire.
Yeah.
We're unmuting you, Jim. Sorry. There's a lot of people on the line here. We have to find your name. Jim, you're okay. Step out, move on.
Patterson.
You're on, Kyle.
Yes.
Rector. Store.
Go ahead, Chris.
Yes. Yes.
Summers. Oh, it's
My name is.
No. I think what they should do, I think what happened is here, everybody unmuted.
Taylor.
Yes.
Oh, thank you.
Unmuted.
Thorsland.
Yes.
Young.
Miller?
Do you approve of the agenda? Do you approve of the agenda? Clemens.
Yes.
Great.
Clifford.
You're muted, host.
That's
Can you hear
fine,
me?
John. Yep, we got you. Yep, we got you. Did you vote yes, John? Did you vote yes, John? Oh,
Yes, can you hear me? I'm in the server room. I can't hear you.
yes, we got you.
Court. Dillard Byers.
Yes.
Eisenman. Oh, sorry.
Yes.
No, there's Esri's next. Esri.
Yeah.
Fears.
Yes.
Portado.
We're looking for your name, Stephanie. We don't see your name anymore. Have you logged off? We hope you've logged off. If you haven't logged off, let me know. Moving on.
Rosales. Do you approve of the agenda? We need to do Jim McGuire.
Okay.
Anymore.
Back to Jim McGuire.
McGuire.
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Great. All right, moving down to the next item. At this time, all of the regular meetings of the county board are still scheduled, but will be canceled if there is no pressing business. Note that the highway committee will move to the Lyle Shields room because this is where we have to do the technology. Next is public participation. If the public has any comments, they need to raise their hand on the screen so that we can see that they want to participate. And I will call, as usual, people to be able to say something. So James Kilgore would like to speak.
Okay. Thank you very much for the opportunity. Can you hear me all right?
Yep.
Okay, great. Thank you very much for the opportunity, and thanks for persevering through the technical issues to make this happen. It's a first for the county, and it's great that you're providing us with this service. So I'm here tonight to speak about the situation of the COVID-19 in relationship to the jail. So we're not here to talk about jail construction at the moment because we have a much bigger crisis, and that is that we have people who are incarcerated in the jail in the midst of a pandemic. And I've been in prisons actually where there was a flu epidemic, and the typical response is a lockdown. No movement, but the virus still spreads. It's a terrifying situation. It produces a lot of conflict, especially in the open pods like some of those in our jail. For those of you who have made the tour, you can see that it's going to be very difficult for people to maintain any kind of social distance or have any control over that social distance in that situation. But I think there's a number of other factors that make the situation in jails and prisons particularly conducive to spreading lethal viruses like the one we're dealing with now. First of all, the most obvious is that people are packed together. If you're in a cell or a dorm, you're very close to a person and you don't have, or many people, and you don't have any control over managing that environment. Secondly, while jails are self-contained in the sense of if we're talking about quarantine, at the same time, there's a constant churn of new people coming in and potentially bringing in the virus. At the same time, staff are also in and out on a daily basis, and they are also potential carriers of the virus, no matter how careful they are. Thirdly, typically there's limited or no access to cleaning materials and the kinds of personal hygiene items, particularly things like hand sanitizer, which in many jails and prisons are actually contraband and not allowed to be in the prison or jail in the first place. Fourthly, the safest way to maintain social distance is a lockdown, which in itself is inhumane, particularly if it's solitary confinement. 10 days has been declared torture by the United Nations. We're in kind of an open-ended situation here in the county jail. Fifthly, if you're locked down, it means that somebody must bring the food to your cell or to your quarters, and that means that person is going to be moving about and also have a good chance of spreading the virus. Sixthly, it's difficult to wash clothes, to wash bedding, to clean the environment that you're in. 7, a lockdown is isolation. It's no phone calls, It's very psychologically stressful. Typically, there's no visiting, or if there is visiting, it's through glass or or people are often in shackles when they go to visit. And lastly, I want to just say that medical services are limited, and if there's a serious outbreak, it's going to be very difficult to handle. And my last point is that it all amounts to a delay in due process, that people are sitting in a jail and it's going to be very difficult for them to timely proceed with their case, to get access to courts, to have legal visits, to get access to legal materials and their mail and so forth. And as a result of this, jurisdictions around this country are taking steps to remedy this situation by moving toward decarceration, moving people out of the jail, reducing the number of people coming in the jail. And in this regard, I would have a special message in closing for those county board members who may be leaving before the next term starts. That is, you have a critical moment in your political career here. You can choose to be part of the solution and take action around the county jail and its population to save lives, to reduce that population, to provide them with access to life insuring services outside of the jail. Or you can be a lame duck legislator and take no action, and believe me, you're going to watch while people die unnecessarily. We sincerely hope that you choose to take the heroic and humanistic path and take action to save lives. Thank you.
Thank you. Do we have another hand? Looking for someone else that's interested in public participation. There's no more hands at this time, so we will close public participation. Moving on to the consent agenda. Can the executive get a motion to approve the consent agenda? Mr. Thorsland, Mr. Rector, any discussion? I guess there won't be any discussion. We will do a roll call on this as well, which is required.
Goss,
Yes.
Harper. Oh, sorry. Harper,
Stan? Stan, you're not muted. We're approving the consent agenda. Okay, no response.
Ingram,
You muted Champaign County. Oh, sorry, we're going back. We pushed a button we shouldn't have pushed. Going back. We're approving the consent agenda at this point. So, who are you on, Mike?
Yep.
Champaign County.
Okay, that was Mike.
Sorry,
Thank
we're
you,
going
Mike.
back. We pushed the button we shouldn't have pushed. Going back. We're approving the consent agenda at this point. So, who are you on?
We can see you, Mike. We got your vote. Thank you.
Ingram.
That's him. He said yes.
Okay. McGuire,
Are you speaking into the mic?
Yes.
Patterson,
Yes.
Okay.
Rector. Storr,
Yes.
Taylor,
Yes.
Thorsland,
Yes.
Young. Yeah, I heard. Clemens,
Yes.
Clifford,
John, are you there?
Yes, can you hear me? Hello?
Yeah, we got it, John. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Cowart. Yes. Dillard Myers,
Yes.
Eisenman,
Yes.
Esri,
Yes.
Fears,
Yes.
Furtado. Is she still gone? Okay. Rosales. I'll come back to Harper. Harper,
Stan?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Okay, motion carries. Let's see, where are we? Okay, we're at communications. Unless somebody has really something burning tonight, we're going to skip board communications. Does somebody have something they really need to say tonight? Mr. Goss?
Yeah, sorry about this, but I would only pass it along because I was asked to by a constituent in Mahomet. And it's just a letter that has to do about the election. Jody and Jim, I wanted to pass along some issues I noted while voting in the 2020 primary and my perception of the reflection on the current county clerk. First and foremost would be the clerk's webpage. Is there an era? In this era, is no fathomable reason why it couldn't and shouldn't be kept up to date, especially with the changes to the polling places in this time. I tried to find where my polling place moved since the Glenwood wasn't a viable option. The webpage directed me to call the office. I tried to see a sample ballot so I could be better informed. The webpage said call the office. I tried to see who my current representatives are. The webpage listed the major heads in each elected office, but not one representative based on district, not at the village, township, county, state, or federal level. At the polling place, which is Elks Pavilion at Lake of the Woods, the voter ahead of me finally requested a Republican ballot, though at first he said he didn't care which he received. The election judge gave him the ballot, but then realized she marked him as a Democrat in the system and inferred she didn't know how to change it. He just took a Democrat ballot, and the election judge, then made a comment about how he would now be able to cast a vote in the only race that really matters. I took that as an entirely inappropriate statement from an election judge. Additionally, the pens were left in the voting booths. No one was actively sanitizing them, and I saw no hand sanitizer, which flies in the face of everything the county clerk published ahead of the day of the election. Finally, the News Gazette recently reported the clerk had stated he had begun counting votes Monday night. I am led to believe this is a significant violation of voting laws. The office of the county clerk has failed significantly during this election and should be held accountable. Thank you for your time and attention in this matter. Respectfully, Joel L. Jessup.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Thorsland?
Yeah, I'll keep it brief. The alleged Monday night counting was explained quite well. It was in fact the process that Gordy Holden had developed with the secure thumb drive. That was explained. I don't know about Elks Pavilion. I voted. It was published in the paper.
Excuse me,
either
this
2
isn't
or
a
4 years
discussion
ago.
time. This
Yeah.
is communication to the board,
Yeah.
so.
This letter, I'm sure, is up to date as the information is right now. You can talk to Aaron right now and find out why there was a timestamp that said that. But that was the same thing that the previous
Eric,
clerk had done.
it's not a discussion
Okay,
time with the board.
that's all.
Okay. Mr. Esri?
Yeah. I guess I just had a question. It looked like maybe there were at least a couple other people that wanted to participate in public participation remotely. That's my only comment.
Sorry, it's past public participation time. So I'm sorry if we missed them. We're doing the best we can right now. Okay, actually, it would be helpful. Let me just mention here for people that are on public participation. It would be helpful if you got off of the Zoom site and went to our Ustreaming application, because the more people that are on the Zoom site, the more difficult it is to find who's trying to speak. So just as a comment, if you have availability to go to the Is it back on? Okay, sorry.
Yes.
I'm
Yes.
mentioning. So the more people that are on the Zoom application, it's hard to find people whose hands are up that want to speak. So if we're past public participation at this time, if you're the public and you wouldn't mind getting off of the Zoom application and going into the Ustreaming application where we normally do this meeting, it's still being done that way, and so you would be able to watch the rest of the meeting that way. Just as a request, because I'm having trouble finding how many people are still on the meeting and the names of folks that I'm trying to call on. Okay, Charles would like to say something. Mr. Young? This is
Yes, can you hear me?
this is board communication. If you have a communication that you need to relay to the board.
I will be brief. This is also coming from my constituents, but they told me stay consistent. Once again, since I've been on this county board, I have come to the conclusion that its systems and practices and that process has a lot of flaws that seriously need to be looked into in regards to how things are done, how decisions are made. I'm not just talking about with voting alone, but with how the county government is ran, along with behind the scenes activities and what take place. And also in our public meeting now, there is no real checks and balance system in place here with this 1-year-old new form of government, and no language or assessment to really say how things are done correctly or not. No group, no unit, no committee, no office, no department to monitor or to oversee policies carried out in place. A lot of ambiguities, open interpretation, which I think is done intentionally, or lack of really knowing how to do things correctly, which is very honest, very dishonest toward our taxpayers and how we use their money. Thank you.
Okay, any further communication? Do we have any hands up? Mr.
I'd like to
Storr, do
say
you have
something.
something to say in communication? We thought we saw a hand, but we don't have it now.
Yes, I was a little concerned because, doggone it, there were a number of people who wanted to speak during public participation, but weren't recognized, and that's out of order. And I expressed my dissatisfaction with their not being allowed to say their piece before the board, especially as I know that some of them had comments regarding some issues that are great concern before the board, including the county jail. But but
This is communications time. I appreciate that, and I'll consider whether we would add another public participation time at the end of the meeting to finish this. We didn't see any other hands at the time. We're trying to get used to the technology, so apologize to anyone that we missed, and we're doing the best we can here. Okay, I think we could move on now to approval of the minute. Oh, I'm sorry.
Yes, I'd like to communicate also about okay, thank you. I'd like to communicate also about the website. I also tried to use the website, and not just on the 17th, but many times in the previous weeks. And most of the areas we did not have access to. You were told to call the county board for information for something as simple as finding out where your poll was to vote. When you put in your address, you had to call the clerk. And it's been like that probably for about 4 weeks. And that is totally unacceptable. And even looking at the different polling places on there, there's no legend or explanation of what all those initials stand for. Fortunately, I was able to figure it out, but many people in our public, they want to know, what does CH stand for? What does UR stand for? There's no legend to explain anything and stuff, and those are just a couple of issues on the website, and I can name many, as the Muhammad neighbor did, and something needs to be done about it quickly. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. You can keep it. All right, moving on to approval of minutes. Can the executive have a motion to approve the minutes for February 20, 2020?
So moved.
Mr. Rosales? Ms. Dillard Myers? Okay, we need to do a roll call. This is really fun.
Goss,
Yes.
Harper,
yes,
Ingram,
Yeah, sure.
McGuire,
Yes.
Patterson,
Yes, and I do want to know Ingram and I both had our hands raised for communications.
Rector,
Yes.
Storr,
yes,
Taylor,
Yes.
Thorsland,
Yes.
Young,
Working? You are unmuted.
Clemens,
We got you, Charles.
Yes.
Clifford,
Yes.
Cowart, Dillard Myers,
Yes.
Eisenman,
Yes.
Esri,
Yes.
Fears,
Yes.
Rosales.
Okay, motion carries. So I'm going to take the privilege of the chair, we're going to go back to communication. I would like to know if either, I'm sorry, yeah, we're going to go back to whatever people wanted to say, moving back in the agenda, because I missed the hands. We're going to start with the board communications, and I think Mr. Patterson, and who was the other one? Mr. Ingram wanted to say something. This is not a discussion. This is if you have communication from another, like a constituent or from another, unmute us again. Start over. The county. We're muted again. Okay. Can you guys hear me? Okay. So I'm saying I'm taking the privilege of the chair and going back on the agenda to a couple of things because we evidently missed some people. So I'm going to ask first for communications from the board members. I want to remind the board that this is not an opportunity for the board to express personal opinions. This is not a discussion. This is a place for you to relay communications to the board about community events or your liaison work with other boards, etc. So Mr. Patterson, do you have something you wish to add?
I just wanted to note that there were multiple people who were attempting to do public comment. I believe Dottie Veerwise and it looks like Ben Jocelyn both had their hands raised. So if we could also allow them to speak, I think that would be appropriate.
Yeah, I will go back. Mr. Ingram?
Hello. Yeah, I was mostly wanting to check in to make sure that I don't think Stephanie Furtado's name's getting called, but she is in here. She's just under Steph. So that would be important to make sure that she's getting called. Also, I do appreciate, this is like the Wild West. None of us know what's going on, so we're trying. I do appreciate you going back. One thing that is worth noting is that a lot of the time when you are coming back from roll call vote, the only thing that's happening is that even the host mic is being muted. And so then nobody that's just watching through Zoom and not on the website as well cannot hear what you're doing. So I think that's where the problem with public participation was, that they couldn't hear you asking if anybody else was wanting to participate. So anyway, thank you for trying to figure this all out, and thanks for making some exceptions for people trying this out for the first time. Okay, bye.
Okay, so Stephanie is available on the call as well. Okay, we're going back to public participation. We have, I think, 2 more people that wanted to participate. Did you get the names? Okay. Mr. Wise? Ben, there's somebody that's registered as Ben.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Wonderful. Thanks so much for coming back. Yeah, it took me a moment to figure out how to raise my hand. I was there and I just, I was clicking the clap icon, which raised a different hand than the raised hand, but I've got it now. Thanks so much for coming back. I really appreciate all the people who have advocated me getting to say a couple of words. Really quick, yes, speaking on the jail issue, I know that I've talked about that issue before, but again, as James said, this is a current upcoming crisis and pandemic, and just want to say that I think that we have really urgent things to do here. There's people in those prisons. I'm scared. I imagine that a lot of you are scared. I appreciate you continue to do your civic duty, and I'm really grateful for everyone who's doing all that they're doing to make the precautions necessary to have people be safe in this time. And I wish everyone and their families well in this time as well. As we look at prisons, there's already prisons and jails across the country that are starting to see people with COVID-19. It's a very high-risk area that people aren't, as James said, able to do social distancing there, and people have a high chance of catching having that disease spread around the jail very quickly, and then people will likely lose their lives. It's a matter of math. People who are at risk should be evaluated and let go. They've been sentenced there for time, not for life, and we should really be looking at people over 50 and those who have immunocompromised and who are immunocompromised to look at them closely and see if we can let them out of jail, because with the number of people we have in there and the percentages of people who are catching it and losing their lives, it is a very likely scenario that if things don't change, and even if they do change, that people might be losing their lives in the prison or jail right now. So I urge you to take all the measures. I know that the sheriff is already urging people, but to sign on to efforts to reduce the jail population right now, because that is not only good for the people who are currently there, but good for our county, as if our jail catches it and it spreads amongst the jail population, we will overwhelm our health centers and our health emergency workers' ability to deal with this on a county level, as well as the individuals who will be affected. I really want the people who are there to also have care, the workers as well as the people who are taken there. Sorry, I'm moving slow, but people should all have care. Everyone who's coming to the facility should be screened and should be given tests. The people who are sentenced, as well as the people who are corrections officers, the sheriff and other police departments should be encouraged to cite and release instead of bringing people in, so we have less exposure. In-person visitation should be replaced with video, and phones should be expanded and free, so that people who are no longer able to see their loved ones have the chance to do that at lower costs. We should be giving people release without electronic monitoring. The probation and parole officers should also be given good tests and good care in this time, and we should make sure that they have tests so we don't spread it into our prison system. And people who are low risk should be let out. We don't need a lot of people catching this disease. It's a very dangerous thing right now. With the death rates in some countries, we're not looking at under 1%. We're looking at high, with resolved cases looking at as high as 10% in some cases, not to say that that'll be the end case, and more people are looking at 2 to 3%. But we really don't want this catching. These people have their lives at risk, and we don't want that to be the case for folks who don't need to. People's lives are at stake. We really need to take that seriously. And so people also should not be admitted to the prison who have low risk money bond. People who are not at risk, who are not currently at risk to the public, should not be made to risk their lives, and they shouldn't become a risk to the people and the lives of both the officers and other correctional people who are there, as well as the folks who are occupying our jail. So I really appreciate everybody taking the time, those who advocated for public speaking to be reimagined, and I really appreciate your patience. But this is a really, really big deal. Gravity should not be understated. People's lives are really in the balance, and I really hope that you can take some time to advocate getting that population to be as small as it possibly can be to mitigate the very likely loss of life that could be coming this way. Other counties are already doing it. There's many counties. There's New York already has people who have coronavirus, as does Pennsylvania. There's folks getting let free in Chicago and in North Carolina, California. There's lots of other counties who are doing this because of this crisis. And in this time, I urge you to follow their lead. Thank you very much.
Thank you. And I think the other hand that we noticed was Mrs. Verweiss.
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Okay.
Yep.
First, I'd like to thank you for going back to allowing us to speak. I think that we had both physically raised our hands rather than realizing you meant to raise the hand on the computer app. So I want to support what was said by James Kilgore and by Ben Jocelyn in terms of the importance of preventing COVID from getting a foothold in the jail and protecting the other people in the jail, including the staff that are there. I usually bring you numbers on how many people are in jail, and I checked it over the last week. One thing that was encouraging, and it was a week ago that I saw in the News Gazette that, a week ago tomorrow, that I saw in the News Gazette that there was going to be an interest and attempt at decreasing the number of people in the jail. And since that time, the average number of people who were booked into the jail, other than the ones who were on book and release because they had a different situation, the average was less than 5, as opposed to the normal average of 12 to 15. And so I was pleased to see that. That means that probably police departments are doing more citations with notice to appear in court. There may also be a little bit of a sense in the community general dread, and maybe people are just kind of staying home. And maybe that's contributed to it also, but I think we have a real difference showing up in it. The second thing is the average. This month, the average had been around 175 to 180s, and today it's down to 164 people that were there when they did the count at change of shift this morning. So I think this is really making a difference. That 164 is in the range that could be kept in the satellite jail alone. The two different numbers we have on how many people who can be there are 141 and 182, but it's well under, it's at least 10% under that 182 number. And so that's really encouraging for what we can do in the future as policy to make sure that the satellite jail does not need to be enlarged. So I hope that you will support all the things that are going on in the community with law enforcement and the judiciary to help make this happen. And also whatever you can do to support the services that are being increased now so that they can serve the people who do not have resources for housing and for food and for income. And thank you again for your attention, and to everybody for putting up with this first attempt at the meeting by technology. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you. Jim McGuire, did you want to say something?
Actually, I would. Just like the statement that this is the first attempt. Even given this echo that we have, I think this is an utter failure. I know we're trying to do this because of the coronavirus, but there's a failure in communication. We can't address people appropriately. We just changed our agenda twice. We haven't even started the real agenda. We can't see who's talking, what's going on. In future, I hope that we don't try to attempt this again. Thanks.
Okay, we're moving on now to standing committees. The summary of action taken on March 3rd, 2020 meeting of county facilities, and the summary of action taken on March 6th, 2020 for highway and transportation are accepted and placed on file. Moving down to summary of action taken March 10th, 2020 at the Committee of the Whole is accepted and placed on file. We're down to item A, would the finance chair make the committee's recommendation regarding item number 1?
The Finance Committee moves to adopt resolution number 2020-70 reimbursing Mike Ingram.
Can I get a second? Mr. Thorsland, any discussion on this item? Mr. Young?
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Okay, so real briefly, if you remember, I rewrote and revised and recoordinated this travel reimbursement policy. And my understanding was, according to the policy, I looked it up, the travel was supposed to be pre-approved by a board vote. That's my understanding of it when I rewrote it and revised it, because I was somewhat punished when I went through my dilemma, but eventually had to fight for it. So I revised and made it clear, and we passed it based on the fact that it should have been pre-approved. So therefore, I just want to let you know I will be voting no with this reimbursement. That's it.
Okay, does anybody else wish to speak? Mr. Rosales?
Could we get a roll call on this?
Yeah, it'll be a roll, everything's a roll call.
I have a question. I just need a little discussion on this whole situation. From what I read, this was about employment. This conference he went to, was that related to county board business? I'm asking Darlene question.
My understanding is that Mr. Ingram attended a training that was put on for county board members and officials regarding employment of county employees. Mr. Ingram, are you still on the line? Would you like to speak to
Does he
this?
supervise any county employees currently?
He does not supervise any county employees currently.
Okay, that's the answer to my question.
Happy to speak to it. I did speak to it at the last meeting as well. So the reason for for me asking when I did was because my schedule opened up and it just happened that I was able to go to this thing, which we all got emailed about, as far as I know, because it was from the Illinois State County Board Association, County Board Members Association. So it was something that we were all invited to. It was for, there was sexual harassment training. There was also stuff about new laws that were coming in. So it wasn't just about people who employ people. It was actually about the new laws that we will all be dealing with, including the cannabis changes and also things that have to do with like any laws that changed with 2020 that just came through. So, so that was why I thought it was a good idea to go to. I learned a lot, and I don't know. I just, I actually emailed Geraldo, Darlene, and somebody else because I think I put one of the committee chairs. Sorry, I can't think. One of the committee chairs on copy as well because I found out before we had a board meeting, but it was too late to put it on the agenda. So they just said, "Well, give us the information," and I did that. So anyway. That's, I think, all the information that we talked about at the last meeting, but maybe people weren't there or paying attention. Thanks.
I also would just like to mention to the board that the dollar amount that was announced at the committee of the whole, there wasn't a dollar amount, and the dollar amount is actually $189.32. So that has been corrected on the current resolution. Ms. Cowart?
Yes, I'd like to ask Mike, he voted no on this reimbursement when we were at the committee. So why did he do it, and do he still feel the same way?
So the question that's being asked from Mike Ingram is that he voted no for this at the committee of the whole, and she's wanting to know, Ms. Cowart is wanting to know why, and do you still feel that you should vote no?
Really, it was mostly just because I wasn't sure. In the past, people have not been allowed to abstain from roll call votes that I could see, or people would at least get upset if anybody did that. And I didn't think that that I should be voting for money for myself. That didn't seem appropriate to me. So I just voted no because I thought, at the very least, if I am not allowed to abstain from the vote, that I should probably not vote to give myself money.
Any other discussion? Mr. Rector.
So when I looked at this again, it looks like the meeting started at 9 a.m. in Springfield, which is about an hour and a half away. So I'm just kind of troubled. And if Mike wants to respond, that's great. I don't understand the need for the hotel room. First of all, there was no prior approval. Like Mr. Young said, we wrote this policy for this reason. I think we asked to have it so if somebody needed prior approval that Geraldo or Darlene or somebody could. Didn't happen, but it just seems like this was a 9 o'clock meeting. We're all professional people. You get up, you get out of bed, you roll out to Springfield. It's an hour and a half. So I'm not sure why the request for reimbursement is here. Thank you.
Mr. Ingram, would you like to respond to that?
Sure. I don't know how professional all of us are. My schedule is not the same as everybody else's, so I got a hotel room that night just so it was easier for me to make it. Turned out to be a good thing because anybody without a hotel room didn't actually get to attend the conference because of the snows that we got, including one of the presenters. So I guess it ended up being a good thing. But honestly, if everybody decides to vote against this, it's perfectly fine by me. I did ask via email the chair and the executive ahead of time, but we could split hairs or not. I honestly don't care.
Mr. Patterson?
Yeah, I just wanted to kind of just note for the record that we have in the past, I believe it was with Ms. Cowart and Dr. Young, went to a conference in Springfield, and we did reimburse a hotel. So there is precedent to staying at a hotel in Springfield.
Any further discussion? You want to?
The conference we went. Mhm. Okay, the conference that we went to, that was before the new policy was rolled up. So we did have permission to go because we were attending the classes that county board, the county commissioners were having. So they were aware that we were going.
Any further discussion? Okay, we'll take a roll call vote, please.
Goss,
No.
Harper,
No.
Ingram,
Nah.
was that abstaining? That was no. McGuire,
No. No.
Patterson,
Yes.
Rector,
No.
Storr,
Yes.
Taylor,
Yes.
Thorsland,
Yes.
Young,
No.
Clemens,
No.
Clifford,
No.
Cowart, Dillard Myers, Eisenman,
No.
Esri,
No.
Fears,
No.
Furtado,
Stephanie, are you there?
Rosales,
No.
Okay, the motion fails. Okay, I don't think there's any new business this evening. Other business, I'm going to ask for an omnibus motion for items 1 and 2, adoption of resolution 2020-71, authorizing purchases not following purchasing policy, and item 2, adoption of resolution 2020-72, authorizing payment of claims. Can I get a motion? Ms. Cowart, Mr. Rector, any discussion on these items? Mr. Tinsley. We can't understand you, Mr. Tinsley. Are you speaking close to your mic?
Yeah, I couldn't unmute myself. I was trying to say that I was trying to vote. I was not called in the roll call.
For the last vote?
Tinsley,
Okay, you can go ahead and vote. We'll record it.
Yes.
Okay, thank you. That doesn't change the outcome. Okay. Ms. Furtado.
Excuse me, hey, was my vote counted?
No, your vote wasn't counted. We couldn't get you on the screen either. So are you voting on the last motion? We've lost you again, Stephanie. Are you voting on the last motion? Okay. Stephanie, are you there? Are you going to vote? We can't hear you. Your name is on the screen, but we can't hear anything you're saying now. We did hear you before when you asked if you were on the vote. Something has happened. Will her vote make a difference? Okay. Yeah. Ms. Cowart, Mr. Rector. Okay. Stephanie, I'm sorry, we're not able to get it. Oh.
Sorry, I didn't quite catch that. Could you please repeat it?
The county is muted again. You are unmuted. Stephanie, are you still there?
I seem to be having trouble hearing you.
It won't make a difference on the vote, so I'm going to move on. Okay, moving now to item number 3, which is for information only from the auditor, the
Point
extension
of
of
order.
accrual period.
There was no vote on the omnibus.
Oh, I thought we did. Oh, I'm sorry. We went back to the last vote. Okay, yes, I'm sorry. Okay, we need to vote on the omnibus motion. Roll call, please.
Goss,
Yes.
Harper,
Yes.
Ingram,
Yes.
McGuire,
Yes.
Patterson,
Yes.
Rector,
Yes.
Storr,
Yes.
Taylor,
Yes.
Thorsland,
Yes.
Tinsley,
Yes.
Young,
Yes.
Clemens,
Yes.
Clifford,
Yes.
Cowart,
Yes.
Dillard Myers,
Yes.
Eisenman,
Yes.
Esri,
Yes.
Fears,
Yes.
Furtado,
Stephanie, you're muted. You muted yourself.
I was not muted. Yes.
Voting on the omnibus motion that we will approve adoption of items 1 and 2.
Yes.
Yes, okay, great.
Rosales,
Okay, motion carries. Moving on now to information-only items. The extension of accrual period for fiscal year 2019 is given to you by the auditor for information only. Then moving down, the Reeve Stick Read response to community comments in regard to public safety project is for information only. We are down to the Labor Committee. Would the Labor Chair make the committee's recommendation regarding item 1? I'm sorry, we missed important item, B2. County executive adoption of the proclamation to extend the proclamation. And the question here is whether we want to extend it, if you are willing to extend it for one month to the end of April, or if we want to go 3 months to the end of June. In order to extend it again, the board must meet again to do the extension. So it's up to you how you want to do that. And I'm just throwing that out there. So can I get a motion? Pardon? Oh. Aaron,
Yeah,
do you want to make a motion?
yeah, I'll move it.
Okay, thank you. A second, please. Chris Storr, any discussion on the item?
I extended for 1 month, yes.
Oh, okay, thanks, Chris. The motion on the table is to extend it for the end, to the end of April. Ms. Furtado?
Yeah, that's, never mind. I was just going to move it, so don't worry about it.
Sorry. Anything else?
I would advocate for 3 months, but I'll vote for the 1 month.
Mr. Esri?
It's hard to tell. Yeah, I'd be for the 1 month personally.
Mr. Patterson? Sorry, we're getting there. Mr. Patterson?
Yeah, I was just going to ask Darlene if you could speak to what this will encompass as far as the emergency powers, or what sort of funds we're expecting to be able to receive because of the declaration.
I'm going to hand over the chair of the meeting to Mr. Rosales for 1 minute while I can speak. You're chairing the meeting while I speak because I'm not supposed to speak otherwise.
Okay.
Okay.
Give the floor to you, Darlene.
So the declaration does a couple of things for the county. One is it qualifies us for any federal or state assistance that might be offered. We have to be a declared disaster area in order to receive the funds from disaster-related funds. The funding can support things like personnel expenses. So if we have extra expenses for EMTs or things like that, we can count that. It can also purchase materials. So right now we're having trouble finding personal protection equipment. And so if a federal or state government purchases those items, they can then give them to the counties which are declared disaster areas. Most of the times these proclamations happened in our area for either tornadoes or floods. We don't do them that often. In this case, it's a pandemic, which is fairly unusual, so I don't know that we've done one like that I don't know if we've ever done one like that. The last, I think, large pandemic that kind of went through our county was H1N1, which was also a flu virus, but I don't know if we did declare anything at that time. It's not assured that we will get money, but I do know that the federal government has allocated some number of $1 billion, and the state also has allocated some money. So depending on what we will need the money for, we can potentially apply for it at this time. So that's the first reason. The main reason why I did this was, whether there's potential for getting money or not, is that we have an emergency operations plan for the county, which requires that somebody declare us as an emergency in order to set that in motion. And so I wanted to do that so that we could start that motion going. We have a pretty comprehensive plan of how we set up committees to deal with various kinds of issues like transportation or schools, things like that. And we work together as a group. There's designated partners that are part of that plan. We have been meeting sort of informally. Public Health called those meetings informally, but we'd like to have the formal plan instigated at this point. So that's the other reason. The powers that this would involve is that I know there was some concern about various kinds of powers that the executive would have, or the mayors. I know the Champaign, there was a lot of concern about that. Basically, what happens is when you declare an emergency, what you're saying is that you are authorizing a person to make decisions for the county based on the best information at the time in a timely fashion. So sometimes those decisions involve arranging for more staff. They might arrange budget concerns. It might be, one thing that's come up with the state is closing the bars or other businesses. Whatever is necessary in order to deal with whatever the issue presents itself as a threat to the public safety and welfare. So they're pretty broad powers. I will tell you that I don't have really much intention of using anything. Obviously, nobody wants to use powers that are not necessary for the public good. And there will be a lot of people watching what's happening, so there will be a lot of scrutiny about what kinds of powers get used. In our case, the state has taken the lead on trying to do proclamations through the governor's office that affect the entire state so that each county does not have to do them. So that's the kinds of proclamations coming down pretty much we're following at this point. I don't know that the county will need anything different or more extensive than that, but at this time, not knowing, I'm not able to say. But that's how the process works, and so obviously anything that I would do would need to come back to the board. I would certainly report back to you if I needed to do something, but the purpose of it is that you can't always call a meeting to get approval from a lot of people in order to make those kind of emergency decisions.
Thank you for that information, Darlene.
Sure.
I give the gavel back to you.
Okay, thank you. Oh, and unless there's more questions.
Chris?
Thank you. I saw, I've been trying to read some of the numerous emails that have been coming regarding the COVID virus. And one of them from, I believe, UCCI indicated that because President Trump declared a national emergency on March 13th and included emergency declarations for each state, local governments are not required to formally declare an emergency for their jurisdiction in order to receive FEMA assistance. However, what Darlene said, if I understood her correctly, was that we need to declare an emergency to activate the local emergency EMA, Emergency Management Agency, to do their work. Is that different from the presidential declaration?
I'm not sure at this point if that will be different or somehow restrict what we can do. As you might expect, every day you see the number of emails that come across your desks. I'm getting probably 4 times that many, and I'm trying to understand what each of them mean. I'm researching them as I get them to see what impact that would have. So every day I'm just doing the best that I can do to make the decisions, but I don't know if that's the case, if the president has then sort of superseded everything that was done before. I'm not sure. But I think what they're trying to do is make it easier for people to obtain services, again, without going through a lot of committees and meetings to do so. So I don't know if we have to do it. I know both of the cities have done it. We did that before the presidential proclamation was done, so maybe we didn't need to at this point, but I don't think anybody's sure. So we're not sure what kind of information or documentation will be needed to actually request reimbursement for things later or request resources now. A not very definitive answer, I'm sorry.
Anything else you have, Chris? Moving on, Darlene, I'll give you the gavel so we could continue.
I guess we need to do a roll call vote.
Goss,
Yes.
Harper,
Yes.
Ingram,
Yeah.
McGuire,
Yes.
Patterson,
Yes.
Rector,
Yes.
Storr,
Yes.
Taylor,
Yes.
Thorsland,
Yes.
Tinsley,
Yes.
Young,
Yes.
Clemens,
Yes.
Clifford,
Yes.
Coert,
Yes.
Dillard Myers, Eisenman,
Yes.
Esri,
Yes.
Fears,
Yes.
Furtado,
Yes.
Rosales.
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Moving on to the next item. We are not going to be going into closed session, so we can do these separately or as an omnibus. I'm going to ask, oh, labor, I'm sorry, I keep missing. Okay. Would the labor chair make the committee's recommendation regarding item 1?
I seek adoption of resolution number 2020-73, approving agreement between the Champaign County Board, the Sheriff, the Illinois Federation of Federal Order of Police, Court Security Officers, and from January 1st, 2020 through December 31st, 2022.
Okay, Mr. Goss is second. Any discussion on this item? Okay, roll call vote, please.
Goss,
Yes.
Harper,
Yes.
Ingram,
Yes.
McGuire,
Yes.
Patterson,
Yes.
Rector,
Yes.
Storr,
Yes.
Summers. Oh, right. Taylor,
Yes.
Thorsland,
Yes.
Tinsley,
Yes, yes.
Wolken. No. Young,
Been here all night.
Young,
Yes.
Clemens,
Come on, Brad, vote.
Yes.
Clifford,
There you go. Give me a smile.
Yes.
was that Clifford? Coert,
Oh, I am.
Yes.
Dillard Myers,
How the hell do you do that?
Eisenman,
Yes.
Esri,
Yes.
Fears,
Yes.
Furtado,
Yes. Yes.
Rosales.
Yes.
Looks like you guys are starting to get tired. The motion carries. Okay. 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 So now we're moving on to the litigation committee. We are not going to be able to have closed session, but we did pass out information about this. I would like to say the attorney is here this evening. Been waiting patiently in the back of the room, just in case there are any last questions. We cannot have a closed session, so we don't want to discuss this. So I'm going to ask for a motion, and if you don't feel comfortable voting for it, the alternative is somebody needs to make a motion to postpone it to the next meeting. Is this motion and second to pass it, or motion and second to postpone it? Okay, Mr. Thorsland is making the motion. Mr. Rosales? All right, the second. And now we are going to vote. Roll call, please. We can, okay, never mind. I was going to say we could do both of these together. Is that okay with you? Is that okay with you? Okay, we'll do an omnibus motion for both of these together. Roll call, please.
Goss,
Yes.
Harper,
Yes.
Ingram,
Yes.
McGuire,
Yes, 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 yes.
Patterson,
Yes.
Rector,
Yes.
Storr,
Yes. Yes.
Taylor,
Lee? Okay, yeah.
Thorsland,
Yes.
Tinsley,
Yes.
Young,
Yes.
Clemens,
Yes.
Clifford,
Yes.
Cowart,
Yes.
Dillard Myers,
Yes.
Eisenman,
Yes.
Esri,
Were the motions read? But other than reading them into if they weren't, reading them into the record, I'm a yes.
I can read them into the record, so we have exact words. So, yeah, that's right. Who do we have left?
Fears,
Okay.
Yes.
Furtado,
Yes.
Rosales.
Yes.
Okay, that was it. All right, yes, I'll read the whole thing into the record. Adoption of resolution number 2020-74, authorizing full and final release of all claims to include attorney's fees, costs, and expenses. And the second one is adoption of resolution 2075, authorizing full and final release of all claims to include attorney's fees, costs, and expenses. Thank you. Okay. I just want to say thank you at the end of this meeting for all your commitment to the public by your participation in the meeting and being patient as we work out the bugs for a new way of keeping the county's business moving. And thank you especially to our IT staff and custodial staff for their extra work to help all of us remain safe while we do it. So seeing no further business, I call this meeting adjourned.